Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. I see people in the comments wondering, wait a second, why are these guys going live at, what time is it Central Time right now? Almost 5 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
No breaking news. I would say not even developing news. Just Judd is reporting live from the Vikings practice facility after the Kwesi and KOC press conference. And what, Aaron Jones, who else was speaking today?
Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, and before that, it was the three defensive guys that they had signed yesterday. So it was Andrew Van Ginkle, Blake Cashman, and Jonathan Greenard.
Yeah. So we got Judd reporting live from Vikings practice facility, Declan reporting live from the suburbs of Woodbury, and Mackey reporting live from the Barrett Sports Media Summit, a hotel in Central Park, New York here. So it's a global show here today, gentlemen. And we'll start with Judd. Judd, what Kwesi came out, and some people are taking this literally. He said, we're not in a position where we have to draft a quarterback, right? It's like people on Vikings Twitter are just up in arms about this. But let's lead with that. What did Kwesi say? And then we can get to all the other stuff, what they said about Kirk, and then the player press conferences. But so Kwesi basically said, hey, we don't have to draft a quarterback, right? Is that their way of just maintaining leverage at this point? It has to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and in fact, I think it was our buddy Kevin Seifert pretty much out of the gate asked that question about, hey, now that you lost Kirk, are you forced into drafting a quarterback? And I took that as first round. Like, not that you're going to take another Jaren Hall. And Kwesi, in fact, let me get the quote up here and read part of it because it probably is more effective if I read part, and it'll also help to answer your point, Phil. He said, I think as we enter this draft, we have the flexibility to go either way. If the opportunity comes where that player is available, we'll take it. And if it's not available, we'll continue to build around and then find potential odds at a long-term solution. And then he went on to talk about the fact that they have brought in Sam Darnold and that the answer isn't some strict thing, and part of that is the flexibility we wanted to put into our plan for the past couple of years. I think you're exactly right, though. I think that this is, hey, look, what the hell am I going to say? Yeah, oh man.
Dude, we are desperate.
We are screwed. We're trying to trade up with the Patriots. We were just on the phone with the Patriots. We've called the Cardinals. Do you guys have if you guys have Washington's number, that would be great. I don't have it. So, yeah, this to me was, yes, it's interesting that he said that because, I mean, if he says it, you take it with a grain of salt, but he still said it. But yeah, I think that this is 100%. Sam Darnold's been brought in, but I refuse to believe, despite the fact that Sam talked today and that O'Connell talked today and that Kwesi talked, I refuse to believe that Sam Darnold on a one-year contract is the answer. Kwesi trying to keep leverage. But all of that being said, this is a very interesting situation. Like, it's very interesting.
I have a question about what he said for you guys here, but another thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, and I was just like scrolling through and reading some Twitter highlights, and so you were there to get the full context, but did I read right that he kind of bristled at the notion that Sam Darnold is a bridge quarterback? Did he go on like a mini little side tangent about bridge quarterbacks? He said Sam Darnold's not a bridge quarterback. He's a quarterback in our quarterback room. But he took offense to that label of bridge quarterback.
Well, Joe Schmidt asked the question, and he said that you signed a bridge quarterback in Darnold and that it's a one-year contract, so that's a bridge. And Kwesi immediately, came out of the gate with, well, I'm not going to give this a term. I'm not going to call him a bridge. But he bristled slightly. I would say it's more just trying again, because if he comes out and says, yeah, you know what, Joe, you're exactly right, bridge quarterback, hope we can draft one. So this is all a big game of poker, but you're not playing from a position of strength because it's obvious what's transpiring here. But I also asked O'Connell and Kwesi, and they both got to the answer separately about the Cousins thing and if that caused dissension, because one of the most interesting things from Cousins' press conference yesterday was essentially saying, and it was typical Kirk, he talked about the fact that me and the owner and the GM and coach are all on the same page, and that's how you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people correctly took that to imply somebody in Minnesota, at least one person, wasn't on the same page. And so I asked O'Connell, answered first and then Kwesi, but was there a disagreement? Was there dissension in like what the decision was going to be? And it was interesting that they both had talking points on this. They both were very
full alignment. Print the shirts.
Yes, in fact, hold on a second. I'm going to find the word because they both used the exact same word. Yep, there was complete alignment.
Complete alignment.
Complete alignment, and that's how O'Connell started. And then actually, Kwesi didn't answer my question initially. Somebody else asked a question, and he stopped answering the question that he had been asked after me to basically say, "I'd like to chime in too on this."
He's
whole
a
thing.
sports dad. I need to circle back on that for a second.
There was
here.
complete alignment, Mr. Zolgad. Why don't you just go jump off a bridge now? But it's just an interesting. I have never seen, and this is just observation of a person. I have never seen O'Connell sort of this, not really upbeat at a press conference.
So because that was another question. What, it's one thing you're just sitting there. I'm halfway across the country reading quotes. What was the demeanor? I mean, they've had Kirk Cousins as the franchise quarterback for 6 years. They decided 2 years ago, Kwesi and KOC, when they took these jobs, the first GM and head coach jobs they've both taken, and they decided, we're going to ride with Kirk for 2 more years. The talking point throughout the entire offseason from KOC especially was, I want Kirk back. Kwesi said, we think we can win a Super Bowl with Kirk. And poof, he's gone in the middle of the night to Atlanta, right? And by the way, tampering discussion, put a pin in that, circle back too, because that's all over the place today. But what was the demeanor in the room? I mean, they just lost their franchise quarterback, right?
Yes, and I think O'Connell reflected it more than Kwesi. Like if I was to do the amateur psychologist who did what, my observation is this. Kevin is, and it's not shocking because, I don't think anybody doubted O'Connell in particular wanted Kirk back. Kevin seemed, crestfallen's probably too strong, but he certainly seemed down in the dauber about it. Wow. And I think it's partially the uncertainty too, right? Because now you got to find a quarterback, then you got to potentially trade up to get him. This is going to be a lot of work. Now, it could pay off and be great. I also don't think I've ever seen a presser where Kwesi talked more than O'Connell, and I think this is one where Kwesi did. So Kwesi's definitely carrying the message. I don't know that O'Connell was as happy to. He did say, there's no problem, no dissension. I understand that in the end, this was what was best for the Vikings, but you could tell it was a little bit of, oh boy, that's tough. So
do you think KOC, obviously, like they have to put out that front, even if there was some dissension? And Florio wrote the big piece yesterday, dissension, schism, whatever the characterization was, but I believe that Kevin O'Connell wanted Kirk back. Correct. And I wouldn't be shocked if there was some friction about this. So do you believe KOC when he says complete alignment? We are in complete alignment. He even went so far as saying this is the right move for the future of the franchise.
Right.
Which is that's a bold thing to say, considering a week ago you were doing the national media tour at the Combine in Indianapolis saying how much you want Kirk back, right? And all of a sudden a week later, so price point matters because we're talking about a salary cap. But do you buy that KOC is completely aligned with this decision?
Not completely. I buy KOC probably
somewhat aligned. Should we print those shirts?
Somewhat aligned.
Sort of aligned.
I think Kevin needs at least a week to digest this. I think he's lost a guy that he put a lot of work into, that he propped up a lot. Let's go back and remind people that Kirk Cousins was, in my opinion, almost nothing more than a stat stuffer until O'Connell. And then he became a pretty good quarterback. And yes, I saw this. James, shocker, Judd is completely overblowing something. I'm not saying there's a schism within, but what I am saying is this isn't just as easy as Kirk is gone and now I'm going to rinse my hands and it's done. And Kwesi, you know what? To his credit, they're looking at having perhaps the most salary cap room a year from now. So, if you're a GM, you are eyeballing that, and you're like, the future's bright. Kevin O'Connell is paid to win games immediately. Like, it shouldn't be surprising. It's why you want a GM and a coach, right? You don't want the coach to be the GM because you can't serve two masters. And the Vikings aren't. This is the smart play. Do I expect O'Connell to do cartwheels that Kirk, a guy he worked with, and I think he liked, is gone? No. So I'm not saying that like this is some they're done. Kwesi and Kevin are done, and it's never going to work. I am saying I think that we are in the same week that they just lost Kirk, and I think Kevin's mood sort of reflects that. That's not some type of hyperbole. You can't blame him.
Well, let's get back to the initial subject at hand here, and then we'll get to some other fodder, and we can get to some of their reactions to the Kirk thing, and then Aaron Jones and Sam Darnold. But Kwesi is coming out strategically. You don't want to come off as desperate, right? You don't want, because if he's going to be calling the Commanders and the Patriots and maybe the Chargers at 5, if they want to move, if they want one of those top 4 quarterbacks, they may have to move up. You don't want to be asked that question today at your press conference. Hey, so you guys probably need a quarterback, right? And be like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe how screwed and desperate we are right now. You got to play it cool. Hey, we like Sam Darnold. He's only 26 years old, former top 10 pick. In fact, KOC said it. We feel like he has his best football in front of him. You know, we like our Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall. We like our options. You have to put out that front so that when you call the Patriots or the Chargers, it's not completely reeking of desperation. But they know that you're on the hunt for a quarterback. So I don't know how much the things he's saying for posturing at this press conference, I don't know how much it matters. But and I don't know if Vikings fans are ready for this question. Do you think there is a greater than 0% chance that they don't draft a quarterback I'll say in the first or second round? That they don't like the way that the market is falling. They don't like the fact that 3 quarterbacks off the board right away. We don't want to give up future first round picks, and the board just made it so that we couldn't. Like, do you think there's a chance they don't draft a quarterback in the first or second round? Because that's what Kwesi was insinuating.
Yes, he was. Yes, I do. But here's the thing: if there is a spark, a hint of friction between GM and coach now, if they don't draft a quarterback, or they don't if they go into training camp, Sam Darnold 1A, I think you're good. I think you might have a full-on brush fire. But if you are Kwesi, I mean, look at this, Phil. I mean, we've talked about this how many times. The Vikings are a bastion of stability, right? They're going to win 8, 9, maybe 10 games. They're going to sniff around in the playoffs. They are going to, but what they're not going to do is really win when it matters most. If you are, and I still, Kwesi, we don't know yet. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, but let's just play this out as a GM. If you go in with Sam Darnold and you've got some nice young pieces, and you're probably not going to be terrible. This team went to the playoffs with Christian Ponder. So let's say they win 7 games or something like that. Or let's say they're worse than that. Now you're talking a better draft pick. I can't help but think that the expectation for 2024, and Kwesi said he will not use competitive rebuild anymore. I believe that phrase has been put on mothballs.
He said that today?
He said something along the lines of, he started to say something, I think he was going to say competitive rebuild. He stopped himself and said, I'm not using that phrase anymore. So, and I think that's what it was. So anyway, but if you look at where this team is positioned, it would be interesting if they didn't draft a quarterback and they went with Darnold, and let's just say they didn't have a great year. They're still not a really old team then. They're bringing back a bunch of guys, and now let's say you got a chance at Shedeur Sanders. I'm throwing it out there and saying I think the odds are very low. I think they're way closer to 0 than they are to 15%. But the problem is I think it would cause problems in the building. I don't think everyone would be on the same page for sure, which is why I think that ultimately they're going to try to draft a quarterback.
Because we can do this conversation any number of times between now and the actual draft, but if it's playing out and oh my gosh, let's say the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, and the Broncos give up the farm to move up to 4 or 5 or something, and it just winds up being that you got boxed out of the top 4 quarterbacks. Okay, are you then desperately drafting Michael Penix 11th, even though you have him as a second round grade? I'm just saying, like, there are some scenarios where I do believe what he said today, that they don't have to necessarily. No, if they draft a quarterback in the second round, I still think that is a quarterback of the future type swing, especially if it's an early second round pick. But there might be a path where the draft plays out horribly for you at the top, and it makes sense to keep building your building your roster, right? That, okay, well, the prudent thing to do is to grab one of these freak edge rushers for the future or a defensive tackle or something. But so I think part of it was him posturing when he said that, but I think part of it was, he's looking at all possible scenarios, and right now it looks like the first 3 teams are drafting quarterbacks, and then other teams are going to try and jump just like the Vikings. They're going to have to outbid 2 or 3 teams.
And you have to be prepared for that. Or you can be prepared to, try and trade back into the first round or trade down and take Penix. Like there's but the one thing that I hope is there are some good quarterbacks, no question, in this draft. But where I'm buying what he's selling a little bit, which makes the odds of them not drafting quarterback, I think they're still high, but where you can't say it's less than 0. I think what you run into is you can't be forced into doing something crazy and stupid because things aren't going your way in the draft, right? Like that's how you end up with a Ponder when it's like, oh my God, let's just take Christian Ponder. He's still there. So you have to a certain degree like who you're taking. You have to like and I would hope that O'Connell would know what he is looking at far more than Rick did. But it's an interesting time. Like we got to look today, I think, at a really, really fluid situation. And I think that there's some nerves on O'Connell's part because at the end of the day, if they win 3 games, I'm sure he thinks, my God, it's the last year, it's second to last year in my contract. We won 3 games and I'm accountable. Yeah. But there is a method to the madness. It's just that they have to make sure that they maintain that method and don't go all madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would even say I'm sure they're looking at scenarios of how can we get up to 3 or 5, and that price might be too steep. And there's also scenarios where they're going to wait till the draft day, let the board play out as it will, and there's numerous avenues they can take. I would be shocked if they don't draft a quarterback in the first or second round. I would be shocked.
I think I would be too.
They cannot, for the sake of their contracts where they're at, they cannot roll with Sam Darnold and Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins as their quarterback room and safely tell that to the Wilfs. I don't think they can.
Here's the thing. You can if your goal is to tank in 2024, but I don't think your roster is bad enough. And some of the defensive players you just signed, you have Brian Flores, you've got a bunch of new defensive players, right? You brought Aaron Jones in you don't bring Aaron Jones in for a year if you're planning on going 4-13 secretly in the front office, right?
Right.
You would roll with Ty Chandler and somebody that you draft,
Dwayne
whatever,
McBride.
or Dwayne McBride.
Dwayne McBride would come out of the backfield, yeah.
Totally. So what they're doing doesn't align with tanking, which fits to what Dex just said.
The only thing we haven't looked at so far, because Darnold certainly has fans probably more on the edge of their seats in a bad way than a positive way. But the only thing, and I have not looked at this yet, but the only thing I was thinking of is, let's say the draft doesn't go their way and they don't want to pay the price. It's just too much. They don't want to give up their swap picks in the first round and then give up 2 more picks. And let's just say it doesn't fall their way. Let's say they take Penix and they get, they take a long look. But the one thing is, have we looked at the 2025 free agent quarterback class?
Because like current NFL start. Well, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers.
All I'm saying is this
Aaron Rodgers finished with Brett Favre couldn't.
This team, well, my God,
he's gonna be raising me. Well, he's gonna be in office, so it's gonna be tough.
And he's also. I mean, we thought Favre was weird, but anyway, if you look at it, the one thing that this team is going to be flush with is money next March. So
you're saying that Jared Goff could be the final piece to the puzzle, just like Kirk was in 2018, and here we go again.
I don't like the thought that much. I'm just saying. I'm sure they're weighing all potential options. Obviously, option 1 is to draft a guy, lock him into a team-controlled contract for basically 5 years, and he develops. But I'm trying to think through the permeations because we do have to be prepared if things break wrong for them. You've got to have plans. You can't just go home.
Dude, I love real quick on the Cousins thing, and then I would love to get to what the players said at the press conferences. I love how the NFL is now, according to multiple reports, the NFL is going to investigate whether the Falcons tampered, as if there's any question whether they tampered. I mean, there was literally Philadelphia with Saquon.
Yeah,
like
this is great.
The Falcons were like literally you had contract negotiations clearly happening at the NFL Combine, which happens every year.
Right.
Kirk, in the first 2 hours of free agency, signs a freaking 4-year, $180 million deal, and presumably, right, would have taken that offer maybe back to the Vikings. Maybe there was a third team, right? Like if everything's on the up and up. And then he let it slip in the press conference in Atlanta yesterday that he had met with or spoken to the trainer, like they're going over physical stuff and the Achilles. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Florio does, though. Mike Florio drives this because he's a lawyer. He single-handedly drives. He wants.
Right.
He can taste the discipline.
But I think I would care if the Falcons were deemed to be tamperers. So you have broken the NFL's tampering rule, and you must be punished. I would care if the Vikings were the beneficiaries of the punishment. And I think there's some misperception that, oh man, the Falcons might get slapped on the back of the hand. They're going to lose their first or second round pick, and the Vikings would get nothing, right? Maybe they get a fourth round pick taken away or something, but the Vikings wouldn't gain anything, right?
Correct. The Falcons would lose. They would stand to lose a draft pick, but it's not like that would transfer. That draft pick would just be gone. And what's funny is there was a report this afternoon that the Vikings are upset. So, of course, Kwesi was asked about it. Hey, this tampering thing, what do you think? That's way above my pay grade. That's the league's looking into that. I have no idea. And the Vikings damn well got on the phone and said, this is a bunch of BS. Our guy was in conversations, and it sounded like Kirk, where he really screwed up was essentially saying, I visited these people. And then why Florio is so happy right now is he's the one, to his credit, that went on and said, basically, Kyle Pitts had offered Kirk the number 8.
Right.
And so he talked about that. And Kyle
but then
Pitts got
on Twitter's like, that's BS.
Yeah. And
Florio doubled down, dude.
And then Kirk accidentally sold Pitts out yesterday. So that's
also, dude, the Cousins were packing boxes after the Combine and before free agency. We're just going through our VHS tapes for good old time's sake. No, you're packing your home.
But you know what's weird about that? I think that those pictures now in retrospect came from the Michigan house. So,
really?
like, he wasn't here. Like, that's what I thought the same thing.
Well, they're packing both houses because now they know that he's going to retire as a Falcon so they can live in Atlanta.
According to Kirk, he goes to his in-laws and lives in the basement, okay? That's all I know. That's what he said. So just because he got a $180 million contract, $100 million guaranteed, Kirk is in the basement of the in-laws, and I know that I always enjoyed my stays when I went to see my in-laws in their basement.
And the in-laws always have like dusty VHS tapes too. So I guess maybe that's what they were doing. They were bringing their VHS tapes.
Point Break, perhaps?
almost certainly Point Break. Hey, before we get to just a few other observations from what some of the new players said at the press conference, Judd's out there at the Vikings practice facility. If you are watching us live right now on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, thank you. Please click the like button and the subscribe button so you can help us continue to grow this thing. You guys had us charting 11th on the Apple podcast charts ahead of the Rich Eisen show and Ryan Clark's The Pivot for a couple days earlier this week, which is ridiculous. So it was right behind Bussin' with the Boys from Barstool. So thank you, crazy Vikings fans, for just being with us here all week, this free agency week. Also, we just launched this week a brand new Score North and Purple Daily shop. scorenorth.com/shop. We have a brand new Before I Die design shirt, hooded sweatshirt, and a crew neck sweatshirt. You can check those out at scorenorth.com/shop, gentlemen. So Sam Darnold and Aaron Jones both spoke to you guys a little bit ago too?
Yes. Darnold, let's see here. Seems like a nice guy. A bit underwhelming on the quarterback scale, though. Like, he didn't own and this is going to get, I'm sure I'll be torched for saying this, but you know how quarterbacks can own the room? Like, they sit down, you're like, oh, wow, that guy's a quarterback?
Yeah, like this is not to compare, like, their level of play to Hall of Famers, but when Matt Castle walks in a room, that guy's a quarterback.
Right.
When Sage Rosenfels walks in a room, you're like, that guy's a quarterback. His presence, right?
You can tell Darnold's been knocked down a lot, like just from the way he approaches things and talks. I mean, there is really no edge left there. And I did ask O'Connell today. I said, what have you seen where you think, or what have you seen of things that you think that you can fix here? Because, clearly watches him. And I asked Darnold about the experience, although he didn't really play, he got in San Francisco last season. Because I think, as I said, I said, Sam, you played for the Jets in Carolina, not exactly two great franchises. But then you went to San Francisco and got an experience with, Shanny and that team, which is a really good, solid team. And he talked about the takeaways and stuff. But, I mean, I got to think that this is, in some ways, for O'Connell, a project. And, I mean, I will say this. Darnold wasn't some incredibly dysfunctional until he got to San Fran. That was some dysfunctional stuff. I mean, the Jets are just an absolute dumpster fire. Yeah. And so I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I don't think he starts, ideally, but I do think that is going to be worth keeping an eye on. But speaking of owning the room, Aaron Jones, 100%. You can see why people love this guy.
Is he ready to just unleash fury? Is he mad at the Packers? He must be mad at the Packers.
Well, right? He tried very hard to say no.
Because Zadarius Smith basically came in and said, I'm going to unload on that franchise. Brett Favre,
Yeah. Aaron Jones tried to take the highway, the high road, like Denny did. Okay. But you could tell he is, it's going to be, he was asked what it's going to be like when he goes back to Lambeau on the visiting sideline, and I think his response was, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, he's 30, and so he does skew old for his position for sure. But I think he's going to be a good locker room guy. I think he's the type, you need a collection of those type of guys. You don't need a ton of them, but I think he's going to be a captain type, and it's going to be good. So I was impressed by him. I mean, just first observation, Darnold looks like he ain't here to start. Like, he just looks like he got a job, and he probably likes the opportunity. I'd be curious to get your guys' observations when you see him, which is, not totally surprising. So those two, though, of those two, Aaron Jones to me, I like what I saw a lot. There was a confidence there that I really liked.
On Darnold, he ranks really high on my list of the last 10 years. He ranks really high on my list of quarterbacks I'd love to have seen drafted by a different franchise and see what those 6 years look like. Because arm talent, athleticism, size, everything, all in his favor. There's a reason why he was a top 10 draft pick, right? But there's certain franchises, the Jets are one of them. The Browns have been this way for a long time. The Bears, where they're drafting a quarterback to save their crappy franchise.
Yep.
The Vikings are in a different spot. Cowherd talked about this, and that clip went viral a couple days ago on Vikings social media, where the Vikings have a fully furnished apartment for a young quarterback to move into. The Jets have like a rat-infested, below-ground, like flooded piece of crap cabin or something. Yeah,
little piece of Jersey estate. Rats are like getting at the pizza.
Like the Vikings would draft a quarterback and say, hey, come live in this awesome house. Right. Don't worry about buying any furniture. The fridge is fully stocked. This is great, right? The Jets are like, please, dear God, save us from this hellhole that we live in. And that was the position that, now maybe maybe he fails anyways. If he would have been drafted by the 49ers, maybe it doesn't work out. But that's where I am. A little part of me is curious to see Darnold in a great infrastructure the way it was supposed to maybe be for him. I'm not draft a quarterback. Okay, I'm not saying he's the quarterback of the future, but I am curious to see what he looks like.
He did not. I'll put it this way, just from an observational standpoint. Sam Darnold didn't look like a guy who came here to start. He looked like a guy who came here because he got a job, and I think he thinks he can improve. And you know what? He's probably a backup who's going to make $10 million. That's a pretty good job. So, but you can always tell there's always a certain cockiness about a quarterback who might know that it's going to be a long shot to start, but he still thinks, I'm going to start, especially like in March, right? It's like, it's on. I'm going to work all off season. And Sammy sort of lacked that spark.
A couple people in the comments are talking about Gino Smith was kind of the same way. He was a second round pick, if I'm not mistaken. But all right, Gino, save our crappy franchise, and he couldn't because he was 22 and 23 was good. But then you give Gino Smith a few years, kind of like Sam Darnold. Gino is older than Sam is now, and he gets with an actual franchise that has infrastructure and front office stability. And I know Pete Carroll got let go, but Pete Carroll is just a calming presence. And guess what? Gino Smith played his ass off a couple years ago, got a big contract. He's not going to be their quarterback for 8 years, but is there something like that could be unlocked? It's an interesting thing to watch, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do think I'm trying to think back to previous Vikings sort of backup guys who were brought here and their demeanors, right? Like McNabb, you could tell from day one was in trouble, not because he lacked cockiness, but because you could tell he was just so cashed out.
He was done. Yeah.
He was trying to go to restaurants and stuff. You're right about Castle was definitely here to compete. Like he handled himself like he thought, I'm going to win this job, and he did until he got hurt. But there was a definite vibe there from him of, oh, screw this, I'm going to be your starter.
Gus Frerotte even Gus Frerotte was very quarterbackian.
You know I'm a Gus guy.
I know.
I love Gus. Yes, you're exactly.
But he came,
right.
You're like, oh, that's he's mediocre, but he's a quarterback. Come in the room.
You know what I sensed a little bit of from Sammy? Sensed a little bit of, and again, a great guy, so this is not a personal attack. Brooks Bollinger-ish.
Just a little kind of
Brooks never
sheepish.
Well, yeah, when you talk to Brooks, you didn't say, oh, there's a guy who's going to win a job. You said, there's a guy who's making a nice career, could for sure be a coach. In his case, it's like, but you didn't sense I'm going to take this job by the you-know-whats and I'm going to grab it. That's what I want from a quarterback.
Brooks was a great, nice guy, by the way. But yeah, he almost had that demeanor. People who their demeanor is apologizing for their lead is to apologize. That was kind of Brooks. It was almost like, hey guys, I know I'm not the greatest
Midwest.
quarterback, but yeah,
Midwest, very Midwest.
Very much so. On Jonathan Greenard, I will say this. And I saw him walk in, and then he sat down at the press table alongside Blake Cashman and Van Ginkle. Be prepared for a guy who looks, in my opinion, nothing like, and it's not surprising, Daniil Hunter. I think Greenard will be fine, and I mean, the dude had 12.5 sacks, so clearly he's
not as big. Yeah.
But Hunter was, he was a freak, right? He literally looked like a Superman. Greenard looks like a normal football player.
Yeah. The other signing, I don't know, I'm guessing that this guy wasn't at the press conference today because they just announced this, or it was just reported, but
yes,
they wind up bringing in Jerry Tillery, he was Notre Dame, former first-round pick,
your guy.
Chargers, Raiders, Golden Domer,
yeah.
But kind of a bust of a first-round pick to this point. It's like a $3.5 million deal, up to $3.5 million. So they kind of did this with Jonathan Bullard, who they brought back, right? Who was a former high draft pick a few years ago. So Tillery they bring in as kind of depth. He's 27 years old. Kwesi loves these former first, second round picks that haven't lived up to their potential. Jalen Reagor was one of them, first round pick.
Yeah.
If you can get him for a 6th round draft pick in a trade, or if you can sign him for $3.5 million and maybe unlock a little something, it looks like that's what their strategy is right now. So Tillery, a couple hours ago, reportedly signs with the Vikings.
So as we talked about today with our guy Thor Nystrom on Thursday, you gotta think along with quarterback going up the draft board now. It's got to be nose tackle, right? Defensive tackle, because defensive end, I'm not saying they won't take one, but there's not that urgency now that there was a week, 2 weeks ago. So I feel like when we're talking about let's identify draft need areas in addition to QB, feel like we're going defensive tackle. Feel like we're still perhaps going cornerback. You're not set there. Don't know where you take one, because if you take one in the 5th round, I don't know that means much. And wide receiver.
Yep.
KJ Osborne, as far as I know, is still on the market, but he's not coming back here.
Well,
and Brandon Powell's a 4.
Yeah, right now he's your 3.
Right.
So you could use somebody.
Yeah,
and it would actually, I don't know what Jefferson's contract's going to look like, but let's say it doesn't have a full no trade clause. You sign the contract, you draft another stud receiver. There's some flexibility to maybe trade him if he doesn't really after a year or whatever. But they do need a 3rd wide receiver. So
and I need a 3 too. It's like I got out over my skis a year ago at this time by saying, hey, KJ, perhaps he can be a 2. Well, nice job, Judd. You were wrong about that. So, like,
Center.
Powell to
People are
me-
saying center too, by the way, as a need for sure.
Well, I do want to upgrade there. I don't blame them. Yeah, and guard. Left guard. Reisner's still not signed.
Yep. Is he still begging on Twitter for like day 4? And he's like, somebody please sign
We
me,
talked
dude.
about that with
Thor.
Thor, dude. It seems so weird because, like, he didn't just not get signed by Denver. As we discussed with Thor, he sat there for into the season.
Yeah. I wonder if there's just like a little something off about him.
That's what I'm not trying to imply that, Dalton.
This is like a
if
little
you're
crazy.
Watching, Hey, Dalton, if you're watching, great guy. I heard you were fantastic with the media. But, it seems odd that he's out there again now because it's not like he's going to break the bank.
I think, though, but what I love about him is on every single play down the field, he's like the first guy to run down there and congratulate his teammate for the chunk play.
Yep.
He's like helping the running back, like helping Madison, helping Ty
Kicks.
Chandler.
It was
kicks
Reisner
high.
that had the sweet chin music like kick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
the
that
kick.
was
Yes.
that was worth the price of the signing alone. Just that kick, just like He
Yeah.
kicks right up in the air.
He's got some definite professional wrestler to him. There's no question about
Oh
it.
yeah, he would
100%.
be good.
I could see him in the ring post-career.
What would his finisher be, Dex?
He would splash.
Choke slam.
Splash.
Splash.
A splash, either like a crossbody or just like a big splash onto a guy. I can see that.
I could see like the Yokozuna thing where you start on like the second rope and you like
But
jump backwards and splash.
Maybe
again.
he's got like some of that Keith Lee to his thing where you look at him and you're like, no, that guy can do flips and
Moonsault.
kicks and moonsaults, and you have no idea. Never know.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about now, but it sounds good.
So any other just final observations? Judd's wrapping up at practice here. We'll do a feedback Friday tomorrow morning live at 10 o'clock Central Time. So we got more real estate tomorrow.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. I would say this. Aaron Jones impressed me. Greenard impressed me. Van Ginkel's a quiet guy. But he's got the
quiet.
great hair. He's got the great hair.
Vikings did add a
Van
wide
Ginkel?
receiver just in the last 5 minutes.
Did they?
Trent Sherfield from the Bills.
Okay.
1 year deal, $5 million. He caught 11 passes last year with the Bills. He caught 30 passes with the Dolphins the season prior.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be cut.
Just kind of a
28-year-old
a body, a warm body.
Body from Vandy. Yeah.
Yep, he is a 90-man roster training camp body, it sounds like. Oh, and I did see Pelissero reported DJ Wanham has gone to Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not
Wow,
surprising.
so they completely upended their edge rusher group going into this year. Super interesting. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us here. This little late afternoon bonus episode live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Hey, we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. It's a new era of Vikings football here, and we got you covered every single day on Purple Daily.